First Chronicles starts with a genealogy from Adam in chapter 1, verse 1, right to verse 27, where it lists, quote, Abram, comma, that is Abraham, end of quote, specifically alluding to the name change for this patriarch. But it's much more than that. Hi, I'm Ken Goodevans, and this is Digging for Scriptural Gems. In the Old Testament, the transition from Abram to Abraham isn't just a spelling update. It's essentially the Bible's first major rebranding, signifying a shift in identity, destiny, and relationship with the divine. The change occurs first in Genesis chapter 17, when God establishes a formal covenant with him. The shift in the Hebrew names reflects a change in the scope of his legacy, from Abram, or Avram, meaning the exalted father, to Abraham, or Avraham, meaning father of a multitude. Abram suggests a man of high status or noble lineage within a specific family or tribe. Abraham expands that definition to include a global or multitude legacy, reflecting the promise that he would be the patriarch of many nations. Linguistically, the change involves the insertion of the Hebrew letter He. In Jewish tradition, this letter is often associated with the breath of God or the divine name Yahweh. By adding this letter, the text implies that God's presence was being woven into Abram's very identity. The name change happens when Abram is 99 years old. It is accompanied by several key events. First, the covenant. God promises that Abraham's descendants will be as numerous as the stars. It's also accompanied by circumcision. This physical act was established as the sign of the covenant between God and Abraham's household. And then, of course, we have Sarai, his wife, her name being changed to Sarah. Simultaneously, his wife's name is changed from my princess to princess or mother of nations, signaling that she too shared in this expanded destiny. In the narrative of the Pentateuch, this moment marks the transition from primeval history dealing with all of humanity to patriarchal history, focusing on the specific lineage of Israel. From Genesis 17 onward, the text almost exclusively uses Abraham, and referring to him as Abram afterward is often seen as a reference to his life before his spiritual transformation. We can now see why the author of Chronicles begins his account with this genealogy. However, David Gusick notices something else right in the first verse. Take a look. He writes, the opening verse of the books of Chronicles, first and second, indicates something of their focus. We know that Adam and Eve actually had 3 sons by name, Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 to 2, and Genesis 4, verse 25, plus many other unnamed sons and daughters, Genesis 5, verse 4. Yet in this first verse, here we read nothing of Cain or Abel, only of Seth. This indicates that the chronicler, the author, was inspired by God to make a selective genealogy for a specific purpose. In verse 4, we come to Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, each survivors of the flood, who became the basis for the nations in the post-flood world. The span from Adam to Noah and his sons is common to all humanity. Commentator Selman says this first chapter is, quote, a summary of the generations of Genesis, from Adam to Edom/Esau, shows that all the nations were God's creation and therefore part of his special purpose for Israel. End of quote. Verses 5 to 7 cover the sons of Japheth. There were 7 of them, but the text only goes on to mention the sons of 2 of them, namely those of Gomer and Javan. Again, selective. It's commonly supposed, says commentator Payne, that, quote, the 7 sons of Japheth founded the people of Europe and northern Asia. From Javan came Greek Ionia. From Gomer came the ancient Cimmerians of the Russian plains. From Madai came the Medes and Persians of Iran. From Tubal and Meshech came the inhabitants of the Turkish plateau. 2 of Javan's sons were Kittim and Rodanim. Gusick believes these are respectively the islands or people of Cyprus and Rhodes. In verse 8, the descendants of Ham are the peoples who populated Africa and the Far East according to Gusick. Apparently, Cush's family divided into 2 branches early. Some founded Babylon, notably Nimrod, and others founded Ethiopia. Clark cites an early Jewish Targum regarding Nimrod, who, quote, began to be a mighty one on the earth. It reads, he began to be bold in sin, a murderer of the innocent, and a rebel before the Lord. Now, still in verse 8, the sons of Ham also include Mizraim. This is another way the Bible refers to Egypt. Put, P-U-T, refers to Libya, the region of North Africa west of Egypt. Cana refers to the peoples who originally settled the land we today think of as Israel and its surrounding regions. In verse 12, we read about the origin of the Philistines from Ham through Mizraim through Kasla. Of them, Payne writes, the Hamitic Philistines were sea peoples before settling in Palestine, coming from the Kaslahim, who were of Egyptian origin but are related to the Minoan culture of Kaftor or Crete and the southern coast of Asia Minor. End of quote. In verse 17, we get to the sons of Shem. From Shem came Elam, who was an ancestor to the Persian peoples. Asher, who was the father of the Assyrians. Lud was father to the Lydians, who lived for a time in Asia Minor. And Aram was father to the Arameans, who we also know as the Syrians. Arphaxad was the ancestor to Abram and the Hebrews. Significantly, the chronicler or author included the nations that held Israel in exile, such as the Persians. As the chronicler recorded this sweeping panorama of all the nations as having a part in God's plan, it assured Israel that they were still part of the Lord's plan, and so were the nations that held them in exile. One of Shem's sons was Aram, and he had Uz, verse 17. You won't get that from the NASB or some other translations. Best to look at the NET. Later, a region in Arabia was named after this son of Aram. Job came from the land of Uz, Job chapter 1, verse 1. It's possible then that Job may have been an early Edomite descendant of Esau. You can look that up further in Lamentations chapter 4, verse 21. The reference in verse 19 to the days the earth was divided may well have been a reference to what happened after the failed attempt by man at the Tower of Babel. We're going to stop there today. We've done enough. We're going to stop with Father Terah giving birth to Abram, who later becomes Abraham. Next time, we'll pick up from there. In the meantime, keep on studying that Word of God. You're going to find incredible gems in it and incredible links. And if you like what you're seeing, please indicate so on the video you're watching. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Digging for Scriptural Gems. Till next time.